This is why the world cannot survive without Africa. Sometimes nicknamed the Mother Continent due to its being the oldest inhabited continent on Earth. Humans and human ancestors have lived in Africa for more than 5 million years. The origin of the name Africa is greatly disputed by scholars. Most believe it stems from words used by the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans. Important words include the Egyptian word Afru-Iga, meaning motherland, the Greek word Afrique, meaning without cold, and the Latin word Africa, meaning sunny. Being the second largest continent, it is bounded by the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Atlantic Ocean. It is divided in half almost equally by the equator. What is Africa's uniqueness? Africa is rich in natural resources ranging from arable land, water, oil, natural gas, minerals, forests, and wildlife. The continent holds a huge proportion of the world's natural resources, both renewables and non-renewables. Home to some 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 8% of the world's natural gas, and 12% of the world's oil reserves. The continent has 40% of the world's gold, and up to 90% of its chromium and platinum. The largest reserves of cobalt, diamonds, platinum, and uranium in the world are in Africa. It holds 65% of the world's arable land and 10% of the planet's internal renewable freshwater source. In most African countries, natural capital accounts for between 30% and 50% of total wealth. Over 70% of people living in sub-Saharan Africa depend on forests and woodlands for their livelihoods. Land is an economic development asset as well as a socio-cultural resource. A significant share of these resources is, however, used unsustainably, while others are lost through illegal activities, meaning that the stream of benefits generated from these resources is being reduced over time. For instance, Africa loses an estimated $195 billion annually of its natural capital through illicit financial flows, illegal mining, illegal logging, the illegal trade in wildlife, unregulated fishing, and environmental degradation and loss. Collectively, the continent has a lot to gain in pulling together and harnessing its vast natural resources to finance the development agenda towards greater prosperity. And it must also ensure that future growth and exploitation of natural resources is results-oriented, climate-resilient, and sustainable. These reasons can explain why the world cannot do without Africa. 1. Favorable climate. Tropical wet conditions occur along the equator, the Gulf of Guinea, and the East Madagascar coast. Temperatures remain near 27 degrees Celsius, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, year-round. Annual precipitation varies from 152 centimeters, 60 inches, inland to 330 centimeters, 130 inches along the coasts. Important crops in Africa's tropical wet regions include plantain, pineapple, coffee, cocoa, and oil palms. Palm oil is the primary cooking oil in Africa, as familiar as olive oil or corn oil in North America. Savanna conditions occur in much of eastern and southern Africa. Temperatures here are cooler and more variant than in tropical wet regions. Annual precipitation is between 50 and 152 centimeters. The dry season in the savanna can last as long as 6 months. Important savanna crops include cassava, peanuts, peppers, okra, eggplant, cucumber, and watermelon. Africa's most important grain crops, millet and sorghum, are grown here. Desert conditions occur in northern Africa, especially in the Sahara and the Sahel. Temperatures can range from 54 degrees Celsius, 130 degrees Fahrenheit on the hottest days to freezing on the coldest nights. Annual precipitation never exceeds 25 centimeters, 10 inches, and some areas go without rain for years. Important desert crops include date palms and cotton. Mediterranean climate conditions occur along the extreme northern and southern coasts of Africa. These regions have mild temperatures, dry summers, and moderately rainy winters. Important crops include figs, olives, oranges, tomatoes, onions, and large vegetables, such as cabbage and cauliflower. Agriculture. Climatic factors greatly influence Africa's agriculture, which is considered the continent's single most important economic activity. Agriculture employs two-thirds of the continent's working population and contributes 20 to 60% of every country's gross domestic product, GDP. GDP is the total value of goods and services produced in a country during 1 year. Important crops include alfalfa, potatoes, wheat, cocoa, and coffee. Forestry. Forestry, the management of trees and other vegetation in forests, is an important economic activity in Africa. On average, forest products account for 6% of Africa's gross domestic product, GDP, more than any other continent. This is a result of Africa's abundant forest cover, with 0.8 hectares, 2 acres, per person, compared with 0.6 hectares, 1.5 acres, globally. In Central and Western Africa, where forest cover is heaviest, the forest sector contributes more than 60% of the GDP. The export of forest products, especially high-grade woods like mahogany and okuma, brings in significant revenue. These woods are mostly found in the countries of the Congo Basin, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Republic of the Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea, where there is a dense rainforest. Okuma, for example, accounts for 90% of the trees logged in Gabon. These woods are generally exported to Japan, Israel, and the European Union. Mahogany and okuma are used to make everything from homes to musical instruments to lightweight aircraft. Today, Africa is torn between developing its forests to their fullest economic potential and protecting these natural landscapes from overdevelopment. For instance, the Central African Forests Commission regulates Africa's forestry sector and promotes sustainable uses of the Congo Basin's rainforest products. Fishing pole. Africa's fishing industry provides income to more than 10 million people and has an annual export value of $2.7 billion. Africa has fisheries on all its marine coasts as well as inland. The Great Lakes and Nile River, for instance, support huge freshwater fisheries. Marine fisheries are important to many coastal countries in Africa. West Africa is one of the most economically important fishing zones in the world, producing 4.5 million tons of fish in 2000. Namibia and South Africa are also major players in the marine fish market, exporting between 80 and 90% of their fish annually. The Eastern African countries of Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, and Kenya have well-established fisheries in the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. Small fish, such as herring and sardines, are the most common catch on the African coastline. However, larger fish, such as tuna, cod, hake, and haddock, are the most profitable. Africa's extensive inland fisheries contain more than 3,000 fish species and account for two-thirds of global inland fish production. Unlike marine fisheries, the catch from Africa's inland fisheries is not exported. It is consumed almost entirely on the continent, forming a major source of people's protein intake. Africa's Great Lakes support the largest inland fisheries on the continent. Lake Victoria is the most productive freshwater fishery in the world, producing more than 500,000 tons of fish worth $600 million every year. The Nile perch, a highly prized catch that can weigh more than 45 kilograms, richness in gold. Africa is a major producer of important metals and minerals. Metals exported by African countries include uranium, used to produce nuclear energy, platinum, used in jewelry and industrial applications, nickel, used in stainless steel, magnets, coins, and rechargeable batteries, bauxite, a main aluminum ore, and cobalt, used in color pigments. In 2008, Africa produced about 483 tons of gold, or 22% of the world's total production. South Africa accounts for almost half of Africa's gold production. Ghana, Guinea, Mali, and Tanzania are other major producers of gold. Richness in diamond. Africa dominates the global diamond market. In 2008, the continent produced 55% of the world's diamonds. Botswana, Angola, South Africa, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Namibia are Africa's largest producers of diamonds. Unfortunately, several African conflicts and civil wars have been caused and funded by the diamond industry. Diamonds that come from these regions are known as conflict diamonds or blood diamonds. In 2002, the United Nations created the Kimberley Process Certification Scheme, KPCS, in order to certify diamonds from sources that are free of conflict. The KPCS also aims to prevent diamond sales from financing wars. Countries that do not meet KPCS requirements are not allowed to trade with much of the rest of the world. In 2007, the continent produced 12.5% of the world's total oil production and 6.45% of the world's total natural gas production. Nigeria, Libya, Algeria, Egypt, and Angola dominate Africa's oil industry. Oil exploration has significantly increased on the continent, and many countries are looking to become first-time producers. The built environment. Africa's natural resource economy contributes greatly to the continent's built environment, or human-made buildings and structures. The largest engineering projects and urban areas are directly linked to the production and trade of resources, such as water, oil, and minerals. Yet much like the resource economies described above, Africa's infrastructure suffers from poor management and inefficient government regulation. Africa is home to a number of engineering marvels. The Aswan Dam, a complex of 2 dams in Aswan, Egypt, captures the world's longest river, the Nile, in the world's 3rd largest reservoir, Lake Nasser. The Aswan High Dam, the newer and larger of the 2 dams, produces more than 10 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity every year, enough power for about 15% of the country. The Aswan Dam complex regulates the flooding of the Nile and stores water for agriculture. While farmland has increased by 500% as a result of the dam, land fertility has decreased. Nutrient-rich silt is unable to spread over the Nile Valley because it is trapped in Lake Nasser. The Driefontein gold mine outside of Johannesburg, South Africa, is one of the largest gold mines in the world. The mine is made up of 8 shafts that reach depths of up to 3,352 meters, 11,000 feet, underground. One of the shafts is in the process of being deepened to about 4,115 meters, 13,500 feet, making it the deepest mine in the world. 2 urban areas that demonstrate Africa's uneven growth are Lagos, Nigeria, and Johannesburg, South Africa. Both of these large cities have distinct economic engines that make them favorable for growth. At the same time, each faces similar problems as a result of this growth. Business centers. Lagos is Africa's 2nd most populous city, with a population of about 10.2 million people. Lagos is growing 10 times faster than New York City, New York, or Los Angeles, California, in the United States. The United Nations estimates that Lagos will be one of the largest megacities in the world by 2015. Lagos is the commercial and industrial hub of Nigeria, which has a gross domestic product that is triple that of any other West African country. Located on the oil-rich Gulf of Guinea and adjacent to the Niger Delta, Lagos is a center of oil extraction, refining, and export. The city is tied to the rise and fall of oil prices, creating cycles of extreme wealth and poverty. Lagos' unregulated growth has created a sprawling and chaotic urban landscape. Poor immigrants from rural Nigeria have flooded the city looking for economic opportunities. Residential zones are overcrowded, averaging 6 people per room. Slum communities are growing rapidly, taking over unsuitable areas such as nearby lagoons and lakes. Lagos suffers from water shortages, poor sanitation services, and heavy traffic. Government bodies and urban developers are finding it difficult to keep up with Lagos' rapid growth. Already established mines. Johannesburg is the largest city in South Africa, with a metropolitan population of more than 7 million. Johannesburg is also the world's largest city not situated on a river, lake, or coastline. The city developed around the gold and diamond industry, situated on a mineral-rich mountain range. While mining operations are gradually losing importance in Johannesburg, most mining companies still have their headquarters there. The wealth and trade of these companies and other manufacturing industries are supported by Africa's largest stock exchange, the JSE, Johannesburg Stock Exchange. As such, Johannesburg has become the financial hub for the African continent. A world of minerals in your mobile phone. Most of the electronics we use today are based on several minerals, from aluminum to zinc. In 2021, some 1.5 billion smartphones were sold around the world, up from 122 million units in 2007. As of 2020, nearly 4 in 5, 78%, people own a smartphone. More than half of a mobile phone's components, including its electronics, display, battery, and speakers, are made from mined and semi-processed materials. Lithium and cobalt are some of the key metals used to produce batteries. In 2019, about 63% of the world's cobalt production came from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Tantalum is another metal used in electronic equipment. Tantalum capacitors are found in mobile phones, laptops, and a variety of automotive electronics. The DRC and Rwanda are the world's largest producers of tantalum. Together, they produce half of the world's tantalum. Top minerals per country. Petroleum and coal are among the most abundant minerals for 22 out of Africa's 54 countries. As of 2019, Nigeria produced most of the continent's petroleum, 25%, followed by Angola, 17%, and Algeria, 16%. Metals including gold, iron, titanium, zinc, and copper are the top produced minerals in 11 countries. Ghana is the continent's largest producer of gold, followed by South Africa and Mali. Industrial minerals such as diamonds, gypsum, salt, sulfur, and phosphates were the main commodity for 13 African countries. The DRC is Africa's largest industrial diamond producer, followed by Botswana and South Africa. Botswana ranks number 1 in Africa for the production of gem-quality diamonds used for jewelry. Mineral wealth. At $125 billion per year, South Africa generates the most money from its mineral resources. Nigeria comes in second with $53 billion per year, followed by Algeria, $39 billion, Angola, $32 billion, and Libya, $27 billion. These 5 countries produced more than 2/3 of the continent's mineral wealth. The world's minerals. According to the World Mining Congress, the world extracted some 17.9 billion tons of minerals in 2019. Asia was the largest producer, accounting for 59% of the world's total production, valued at $1.8 trillion. North America was second with 16%, followed by Europe at 7%. Africa produced about 5.5% of the world's minerals, worth some $406 billion. Towards sustainable development in Africa. The GEO6 Regional Assessment for Africa points out that the environment is deteriorating faster than previously thought, emphasizing that governments must act faster to reverse the worst trends. The report recognizes Africa's natural capital and observes that the economic growth of Africa hinges on the sustainable management of its natural capital. However, the unsustainable exploitation of Africa's natural resources by its burgeoning population and the tardiness by authorities to effect sound regulations to tame abuse and overexploitation of these resources is brewing trouble. Nature is issuing red alerts, as evidenced by the many catastrophes we are experiencing, which, if left unchecked, will keep aggravating food shortages, water scarcity, diseases, conflicts, migration, and poverty, all of which could culminate in the destabilization of economies. The UNEP Africa Office supports African governments to translate decisions and statements made on natural resources into practical actions and innovative solutions at regional, national, and local levels for the benefit of their populations. This will lead to wealth and job creation, revenue generation, food security, social equity, and a healthy environment. For Africa to reap the economic and social benefits inherent in this natural wealth, it is necessary to urgently address such issues as the management and the economic and environmental impacts of their sustainable use.